Hi, this is Eric from longboxreview.com. Welcome to a special edition of the podcast. And you may be already asking yourself, well, Eric, why is this a special edition? Well, let me explain. I have an excerpt from a previous episode. This was episode 83, More Fun Comics from 2015. And the excerpt is my review of Gregg Schiegel's PIX. And again, you must be asking yourself, well, Eric, why are you representing an old review that you've done? Well, if you listen to the review, but that's totally optional. You may skip that if you like and skip ahead about 15 minutes. You will know. You will have the answer to your question. Because what I have is a quick interview, a quick discussion between Gregg Schigiel and not myself, unfortunately. Maybe sometime in the future I'll be able to get Mr. Schigiel on the show, but it is a brief conversation between Mr. Schigiel and George from the George and Tony Entertainment Show. And George was gracious enough to let me rebroadcast that excerpt from his upcoming show, which should be out at the same time as you are hearing this, or at least it's out on the same day that this episode will be released. So stick around for that, and please be sure to go check out the George and Tony Entertainment Show, and I will have a link in the show notes. But you can always find George and Tony Entertainment show on Facebook and also on the interwebs. So please go subscribe and rate George and Tony's show on iTunes, and also pay them a visit and let them know that you heard about their show from the Long Box Review podcast. And I think that's it. I will get right to it, and please enjoy this rebroadcast of my review of PIX by Gregg Schigiel, and then stick around for the brief discussion between himself and George. Thanks for listening. Another all-ages book that I ran across that I really enjoyed having read it recently is called PIX, One Weirdest Weekend. So this is by Gregg Schigiel, I believe, with color assists, it says, from Paul Tutroni and Chris Dickey. This came out in 2014, apparently, but I bought it in 2015. Basically, when I was looking through previews, I was looking through the indie section, and I saw the cover to this, which shows PIX on here. PIX is a young teenage girl. She's blonde, she's pretty, and she flies. And she has on in here on the cover, she's got this purple, yellow, and white suit that she's wearing. It looks really cool. She's got this look of happiness and wonder. There's a quality of wonder to it. Maybe I'm just bringing that to the picture, but that's how I took it. And it just looked really like a lot of fun to read. And so I, not knowing anything other than that little blurb in previews, no preview art or anything, I ordered it because I thought that, well, if nothing else, it looks like a book that my kids would enjoy. But I enjoyed it thoroughly. Let's see here. Yeah, the art, it's got a kind of a wacky Silver Age-esque feel to it in terms of the weird things that happen to PIX. It's got a great supporting cast, and there's a few instances in the way that the narration is done. That's probably the best way to put it. The narration is done. I'll get to that in a second. So the cast of this book is, like I said, PIX, but that's her nickname. That's her superhero name. But her full name is Emmeline Laurel Pixley. She can fly. She's super strong, and she's durable, it says. So she's basically like Molly Danger, only older, blonde, and she can fly. She claims during a TV interview in the first chapter of the book, she claims that her father is a fairy king and thus explains her superpowers. And there is, if you look at look at her costume, in the back, it looks like fairy wings the way that the back of her costume kind of flares up when she's flying. At first I thought they were fairy wings, but there are other pictures of her when she's not in that suit where it's clear that she does not have wings. So I thought that was a great touch. Speaking of the costume, she has two friends, Cherry and Reggie, two of her girlfriends, and Cherry is the one who made the costume, while Reggie is the one who designed it. Also in the book and plays a significant part of the story is Seth, who is a childhood friend of Pix's, and who also crushes really hard on Pix. Finally, there is Noah, who is a young neighbor boy that Pix sometimes babysits, and he has a dog named Bonus, and Bonus, the dog, can talk. And then there is Pix's parents, Laura and Ron, who is the stepfather. Ooh, interesting. I hadn't thought of this when I was preparing for the episode, but there are a few similarities here between Pix and Molly Danger. And more than just their superheroines. So interesting. And then there's the narrator who tells us stuff, of course. In fact, on page 7 of the book, there's a great one-page synopsis of who everybody is and basically what their role in the book is. And the narrator says, "And I'm your narrator. I'll chime in from time to time to let you know where things are happening. If time's passed, fill you in when it's needed, blah, blah, blah." But it's unusual. It's not something you see nowadays in comic books. So I really like that quality of it. So in general, Pix is a lot like other superheroes in this sense. She's a bit of a weirdness magnet, probably more than others in other superhero books that I've read over the years. Strange stuff just happens to her. For example, this runs throughout the book. There's basically one major incident per chapter in this book. So the first one I mentioned, she talks about her biological father at a TV. It's a TV interview that she's at, and so while she's there, there's this actor who's also being interviewed. But suddenly the equipment, like the cameras, cables, and other equipment around, just suddenly comes to life and starts attacking people, and so Pix has to step in and save the day. Later, she's flying home and she flies through this gray mist that shrinks her down to a very small size. And there's no real explanation given. It's just there it is. And she's suddenly small. And it becomes a problem because the TV actor that was on the interview with her, because Pix helps save him, he asks her out. And so she has to go home and get ready for a date. I forgot to mention, before she goes through that mist, she stops and gets some new shoes to go with the dress she's going to wear. And this old woman sells her these shoes. Well, then she goes through the mist. She's all shrunk down. She's freaking out about it. She's, for some reason, standing on the sink in her room. I think it was, or maybe it's the sink in the kitchen. I don't remember. But then she gets so riled up that she falls into the drain, goes down into the drain. And that's where another weird thing happens. Basically, she's attacked by a magic 8-ball with tentacles. It is so bizarre. And she basically fends off this thing that's living in this drain pipe, I guess. But she senses that she feels like she's starting to grow, like that mist, whatever that mist did to her, it's wearing off, and so she's starting to grow big again, like Alice in Wonderland. So she gets out of that, goes on the date with this guy, this actor, and everything's going well, I suppose. She's getting bored because the guy just won't stop talking about himself. Big surprise. And then this little girl comes over to get Pix's autograph. She's an admirer of Pix's. Well, the guy freaks out and starts mumbling something about this isn't how it's supposed to be. We had a deal. And then suddenly he starts turning red, not from embarrassment or anger, but because he's starting to turn into a dragon. I mean, God, come on, that's just crazy stuff in here. I love it. And it turns out to be a bit of a jerk. And so they end up fighting. She defeats him, but she defeats him with one of the shoes that she got from that the old woman earlier in the story. She basically hits the guy, the dragon, in the chest with a shoe, and that seems to stop him. Although I'm not quite sure. Oh no, I do remember that. Yeah, because the shoes were made out of some material that basically turns the dragon back into a guy. Well, it turns out the old woman is a dragon too. And so she is a white dragon and the guy is a red dragon and they're at war. And so she knew how to stop him. Anyway, it was just these random things just happened to PIX. There is from the beginning of the story, there is, you hear about the news about this escaped monkey from the zoo. PIX's stepfather, Ron, seems to be quite interested in that for some reason. Ron is kind of weird. He's always tinkering in his workshop or at wherever he works. There's one scene where he is working on this, it looks like a gold disc of some sort. It's not really clear what it is he's working on, but he's working on it intently. He doesn't seem to be too engaged in helping PIX's mom deal with this unusual situation with her daughter. In fact, PIX's mom and Ron have words several times throughout the course of the book about this. I'll come back to that in a minute. Anyway, so this, like I said, there's these news items about this missing zoo monkey, and it turns out that the zoo monkey is highly intelligent. I guess he's been experimented on. Anyway, it can talk, and it kidnaps Noah, because he thinks that Noah is able to talk to animals, because when Bonus, Noah's dog, talks to him, Noah seems to understand what Bonus is saying. Well, it doesn't quite turn out to be exactly what the monkey thought, but in the course of trying to rescue Noah, there's this frog that also talks that comes up to PIX and says, "I'm a prince. You need to kiss me to change me back." Well, this frog we've been seeing since the beginning of the story too. So I love that quality of this book, is that here's all these elements that eventually show up in later chapters that you see bits of earlier. So it's really nice to have that consistent call through in the book. Anyway, it turns out that the guy is enchanted. He has a mentor type character with him who's also enchanted. So the prince is the frog, the mentor guy, his advisor, I guess that's a better word. His advisor is an owl. And so you have this monkey and a dog, and PIX isn't going for any of this. She's just going to go save Noah from this situation, or find Noah. She doesn't know that he's been kidnapped yet. Anyway, the prince takes it upon himself, at the advice of the advisor, the owl, to kiss PIX's foot, because she's out in her jammies at this point. Because Bonus came, I'm really screwing this up. Bonus came to get PIX, and that's where we find out that Bonus actually talks to certain people anyway, or certain people can understand him when he talks. And so she leaves her bedroom in her jammies, and she has these bunny slippers on. Okay, now back to the frog. The frog kisses her foot to try to elicit the change in him. Well, it doesn't work in the way that was intended, and the kiss, the enchantment, ends up turning PIX into a yellow bunny rabbit. Cute as hell too, by the way, the way that Mr. Schigiel drew that. So anyway, then they go and confront the monkey, and that gets taken care of. In the end, the prince ends up turning back into human along with the advisor. Everybody's back to their normal selves, if you will, and the prince, who acts a lot like a Disney character from like some of the medieval sort of time periods that Disney movies are set in. He kind of acts like that. And he acts very privileged, actually kind of like the guy from The Date as well. What is wrong with guys, right? Anyway, he basically not demands, but expects Pix to marry him because she's a princess, he's a prince. They've had this adventure together, they've kissed, and they should get married, right? That's how it's supposed to work. Well, of course, she wants nothing to do with this. And rebuffs the guy. Well, he goes off in a huff, but he still, for some reason, wants to marry her. So the advisor ends up buying a house nearby, and so the guy is planning on wooing Pix. So I guess that's the next book. See another similarity there between Pix and Molly Danger. And then in the end, Ron and Laura have this brief conversation. It's the next to last panel of the book. And they talk about keeping Pix safe. Her mom says, I think she'd be safer knowing more. And Ron says, and yet her father disagreed. And Laura says, she's smarter than you are, or he realized. She'll figure it out. She's started to already. What does that mean? And then the very last page is a splash page of Pix and her two girlfriends just sitting there talking and, being general teenagers. And it was just really cute. It was a really cute story. There's just so much fun here for readers of all ages. Like I said, it's a good all ages book. Nicely inventive storytelling and pretty engaging characters. I didn't talk about Seth too much because mostly he spends his time basically pining for Pix. He decides he's going to tell her that he loves her, and then the whole prince situation rears its ugly head, and he walks away. But they're friends. I like the positive way in which the friends were portrayed in this book. This book was just such a treat for a blind buy. Like I said, I didn't know much about it, didn't know what to expect really art wise, and it turned out to be really, really cool. So I'm going to be on the lookout for PIX Volume 2.
Hi, everybody. It's George from the George and Tony Entertainment Show, and I am here with good friend of the show, Gregg Schigiel. Thanks for taking the time to talk with me today, Gregg.
Thank you for giving me the time to talk, George.
Gregg, we love talking to you, and unfortunately, the last time you and I spoke, and Tony was here too, on the show anyway, was on episode 54. That was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago. It was 2015.
Yeah, and
we're in 2017 now.
Now, back on episode 54, way back in 2015, the reason you were on is because your first graphic novel called PIX One Weirdest Weekend was coming out. But now you have some more exciting news about PIX that you want to share with us. So
I do.
Please, go ahead.
So back in 2015, PIX was a self-published book. I did it all myself, funded it myself, printed it, the whole 9 yards. We talked about that to a great extent on that episode. What was it, 54?
Yes.
Yeah, talked about getting into the previews catalog, distribution, the whole 9 yards. Over the past 2 years, I've been working on the second PIX book, the sequel. It's called PIX 2 Super for School. And in the process of doing that, through various series of things that we may talk about on a later episode when we go more in depth, I reached out to Image Comics to see if they would be interested in publishing PIX, and they were, and they are.
Great. So, congratulations.
Thank you. So yeah, in 2017, which is the year we are in right now, they will be printing a new version of PIX One Weirdest Weekend and the sequel, PIX 2 Super for School. PIX One Weirdest Weekend, new edition, image edition, whatever we want to call it, 2.0, is coming out February 22nd of this year, in just about a little over a month. Great. From, I think, when people will be hearing this.
Yes.
If they listen on time. And then PIX 2 Super for School will be coming out May 3rd, the Wednesday before Free Comic Book Day.
Perfect timing.
Not bad, right?
Yeah.
And the difference between this edition and the original self-published edition is there's a new cover, and there's 4 pages of bonus material in the back, and it's just a little more breathing room. If you have the original edition, you open the book, and the first page is the title page, and then the story starts. And the last page of the book is literally the last page of the book. So in this one, we have a little more breathing room up front, and then 4 extra pages in the back, 2-page story that saw print in an anthology, 2 pages of sort of design and sketch stuff of me developing Pix's costume way back in 2004.
Man, I haven't listened to that episode that you were on in probably since it first came on. 2004, you probably did tell us that it was an idea in your head that long.
Yeah, I don't know that I got into the specifics of the date. I know the date 2004 because I found all this artwork.
Wow.
And was scanning it and stuff. But yeah, I mean, PIX started as a concept probably even before that. Then I started doing the sketching and stuff probably around 2003, 2004. And then it became mini comics in 2007, 2008. Then it became a self-published graphic novel in 2014, 2015. And now we're at 2017. It's a bit much.
We are going to have you on for an entire episode to talk about that process and what has been going on over the course of the 2 years between the 2 graphic novels.
A lot of sitting at my desk drawing, but I'll talk about it.
I can imagine. Somehow we'll make it exciting, though. But
of course we will.
One of the main reasons that I wanted to have you on this week is because of the pre-order deadline for local comic book shops.
Yeah.
Could you tell us about that?
I can. So in the business of making books and comics, particularly with things coming from Diamond Distribution, there's something called final order cutoff, FOC. You may have seen that or heard that said. And that's basically the deadline for stores to get their orders in so that the publisher knows how many orders there are to know how many books to print or overprint or what have you. And final order cutoff for PIX One Weirdest Weekend is January 30th. So if you are interested, and you can go to pixcomic.com to see the new cover. You can even read the first chapter for free. It's been there. It'll still be there. And if you go to your store and say diamond code DEC, D as in dog, E as in excellent, C as in cat, 160764, you'll be able to order it through your comic shop. If you want to go through Amazon or Barnes & Noble or IndieBound, you can type in my name or the title of the book, or I can rattle off the ISBN number, which is 978-1-5343-0140-5.
See, the more you know.
Yeah, and that'll, like IndieBound, nice thing about IndieBound, I don't know if you know IndieBound.
No.
But it's a website where you punch in the name of the book you're interested in, and it'll tell you a local bookseller, an independent bookseller in your area where you can order that book and pick it up.
Oh, I never knew that. Okay, that's good to know.
If you are anti-big box or anti-Amazon or anti-Barnes & Noble or just want to support your local businesses and you don't have a local comic shop, use a local bookstore. I'm sure they'd appreciate the support.
When it comes to my local listeners, I want to let everybody know in the Northern Virginia area, get over to Comic Logic in Ashburn, Virginia, and let the guys know that you want PIX One Weirdest Weekend on your pull list before the deadline this month in January.
I would certainly appreciate that. I'm sure the guys at Comic Logic would appreciate that.
Yep.
That'd be terrific. And I would thank George and Tony.
Oh, yes, of course. You have to mention the George and Tony Entertainment Show, just so that Greg knows that it's worth his time to be on this show and talk to me.
Well, more worth my time. Like, it's already worth my time, but it makes it more worth my time.
Besides for PIX, I know you're still doing SpongeBob work for SpongeBob SquarePants Comics.
As we are speaking, right now, I am penciling a panel of SpongeBob comics.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Wow. I know you just did a recent cover because I just bought it around the holidays.
Yeah, in December, there's part 1 of a 2-part story that I wrote and drew. December was part 1. January was part 2, but I did the cover to the first part. I have an inset on the second part, and that is the Who is Mermaid Girl?
Yes.
Epic saga. And it is an epic saga. But it's mostly an epic saga because it was like 2 years from concept to actual seeing print.
I can't wait till you're on the show for an extended period of time to talk about all this, because the whole thing from idea generation to actually seeing something in print being released.
Yeah.
I can understand maybe even frustration happens within that time frame, but to actually see it all come to fruition, I'll imagine is a feeling is hard to explain.
It's very satisfying. It's very satisfying to finally see something is done. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I do that. I do SpongeBob comics, and that's a story that I'm very proud of because anytime I get to write and draw the stories, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, so right now I'm penciling panel 1 of page 17 of a story that will be in SpongeBob Comics number 68.
Okay, you heard it here first, folks.
Yep.
Keep watching SpongeBob Comics because you never know when Greg's going to pop up as an artist or writer.
That's right, a story written by Chuck Dixon.
Is it?
Yeah, yeah, he does. He does stuff in SpongeBob. Jerry Ordway does stuff in SpongeBob comics. Ramona Fradon does stuff, and it's a good book.
One of the overlooked books out there, one of the overlooked gems that's out
It
there on the
really
comic
is.
shelves. Yeah,
It is, and it's for all intents and purposes an independent comic. The publisher is the creator of SpongeBob comics. I think we talked about that when I was on last time.
yes, we did. Yeah, it's
I'm a broken record.
It's United Plankton, right? But
Yes, United Plankton.
and they appear though under the Bongo section in previews.
They're distributed by Bongo.
Mm-hmm.
Published by United Plankton, distributed by Bongo. Yeah, it's a legit comic book, and it's over 60 issues, so it's one of the higher numbered comic books these days, which is also hilarious. The highest numbered books are Spawn, Savage Dragon, SpongeBob comics. And actually, Simpsons comics has way more. So Simpsons comics, and then probably SpongeBob comics, because once Archie set about renumbering, it opened the door for the rest of us. Yeah, I'm working on stuff for issue 68. So
if you happen to just accidentally put in a reference to the George and Tony Entertainment Show in the background or something like that, we wouldn't mind. If I distracted you enough that you, subconsciously, as we're talking in your drawing, somehow the logo of two hands with the microphones coming together with the Kirby crackle in the background, I'll apologize ahead of time for distracting you, but of course I'd appreciate it.
I think I might be. It might be easier for me to do fish versions of George and Tony in a background somewhere.
Oh, that would be good too. Over at the maybe having some burgers at the Krusty Krab.
At the Krusty Krab, that's not impossible.
Okay, well, Tony and I'll look out for that.
All right, I don't know if it'll be in this story because this one's already laid out, but maybe in the crowd scene, I'll see what I can do.
Okay, don't forget I got to go tea.
I do know that. I don't know that I've ever seen Tony though. I don't know.
Have you ever met Tony?
I haven't. He doesn't go to the shows.
He was pretty adamant that he will never, ever, ever go to a live appearance, a convention, anything like that, unless I drug him first and he wakes up at said live appearance or convention.
A regular B.A. Baracus.
Exactly. We've made it a verb. I have to B.A. Baracus him. Good luck with PIX. I'm excited that it's coming out via Image, and I'm glad Volume 2 is out. And I know some of our listeners who responded to your appearance on our last episode did read PIX Volume 1 and enjoyed it and are waiting for Volume 2 also.
George and Tony listeners are great. They've moved on to listen to my other shows. They're all very supportive, and I appreciate. That's why I'm back, man.
Speaking of other shows, why don't you tell us about your two podcasts? Because one just had a new episode drop.
Yeah, so I do two podcasts. One is called Cruising Together, which we mentioned earlier. I do that with Chris Giarusso, and we have watched every Tom Cruise movie and kind of discussed them, kind of not. It's a lot of nonsense. It's very entertaining, though I maybe am biased. And the next one we'll do is when The Mummy comes out. We will get back on the mics, but until then, I think there's 40-some episodes just in the archive that you can listen to. And that's on iTunes or at hatterentertainment.com/cruisin'. And then I do a show called Stuff Said, which is a comic book based show where for the most part, I talk to comics and cartoonists or cartoonists and writers and people in the comic book game. And that show went on hiatus for a bit. I did 2 episodes in 2016, and I just dropped a brand new episode today, although people will hear this a little bit later, so a couple of days ago. And it's a talk with Chris Eliopoulos, who has lettered 1 billion comic books and currently does those Ordinary People Change the World books that Brad Meltzer writes. And we talked for 2 hours. If you want to fill your brain with 2 dudes talking about comics that aren't George and Tony, see? Stuff Said is where you can get that. And I literally dropped it today. We recorded it on the 12th, and I turned it around. The new format for the show is I do a lot less editing, a lot less pre-production, post-production. I just want to get the stuff out there. So they'll happen randomly. They used to come out on the 15th of every month. I've done away with that deadline, and when they happen, they're going to happen. So subscribe and enjoy them when they arrive.
Right. You never know when it'll pop up in your feed.
That's right.
Well, I do have to wish you great success with PIX. And you will be on the show closer to the time that PIX 2 comes out, right?
Whenever you want to have me on.
Okay, we'll work it out. I know that's probably the beginning of convention season and you'll be heavily promoting, but we're going to try and get you on sometime toward the end of April to remind everybody about Free Comic Book Day and it coming out right beforehand.
I love it. I'm down.
I want you to just remind everybody one more time about the dates when both volumes of PIX will be available?
Sure. PIX Volume 1, available February 22nd, 2017. You can order it now through all the various places you order books. PIX Volume 2, Too Super for School, will be out on May 3rd in comic book shops. It'll be in, I believe, the March previews. If you follow me on Twitter at my name, GreggSchigiel, I will most certainly be tweeting about all this stuff till people are driven mad. But yeah, those are the two books. And thank you for giving me the time.
Well, thanks for being here, Gregg, and we will hear from you soon here on the George and
Yes.
Tony Entertainment Show. Thank you, Gregg.
Thank you, George.